Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV. And hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio out of New York. I am Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is The Corner Bookstore. My co-host and friend Diane Floyd-Behm is not with us here today. She has the day off. So we're going to get right to it. We have a phenomenal guest, and on our show, we spotlight authors from around the world who share their work with us. Today, I am joined by a legend. His name is Rik Palieri. He is a folk singer, a TV producer, a radio show host, and his work is archived at the American Folk Life Center in Washington, D.C. And he is actually going to be performing for us as well today. Take it away, Rik.
All right.
The show, Rik. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here and to be able to talk about writing, about books, about creativity in these difficult times of this pandemic.
Absolutely. But first, I want to talk about that vest. That is something special. Let's take a look at it.
Oh, yeah. This is a pretty wild vest. This was made for me by Manuel in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's a long story about that. My great-grandfather, Giuseppe Palieri, was a embroidery designer. He worked in New York, and he made stage outfits for performers. And I grew up with all of these designs that were in his books, and they were only hand-drawn designs. So I never really got a chance to see the designs. And as I went through life, I started realizing about the importance that certain clothes have. I mean, this is we're kind of jumping into a big, long story because I lived in Poland back in 1984, and I learned how to play traditional Polish instruments, and I lived in the community. And when you wore the traditional folk clothing, it was a symbol that you belonged to that community. And there's a lot of things that you could tell people by the way that you were dressed in those old traditional clothes. And so the cowboy culture also borrowed a lot of those designs from the European designers, like the Nudie of Hollywood and all those people. They're originally from Eastern Europe. And so they incorporated a lot of those cowboy kind of flowers, the bright flowers that you see on cowboy shirts and stuff like that. That all goes back into the Eastern European culture. And so when I started making those connections, I thought that it would be really interesting, because I was doing a lot of tours overseas, that I would wear these different embroidered shirts, because if you're an ambassador, an unofficial ambassador, no matter what, if you're overseas somewhere, people are going to think that you're a cowboy or something like that. So I felt like, well, there's two things that you can do. One thing is that you can run away from it, or the other thing is you can embrace it. And then by embracing it, actually tell the stories about the real cowboys, about the real Native Americans that I've met. So it gave me an opening to that world. So I started wearing these different clothes. And one day I was down in Nashville, Tennessee, and a friend of mine was a songwriter. She brought me to Manuel's, and we started talking, and I started telling him about my great-grandfather. And I have to get up in order for you to see this, put the banjo down. I'm going to take off this vest because there's something special on the back. So I told you that here I was, a young kid, and I'd see all these designs. And there was a design.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
That was, look, I can see myself in here. You can see the rose here. So this rose, Jacalyn, is really from my great-grandfather. It's his design.
Oh, I
and
love
Manuel put it on the back of my vest. So it's actually wearing a part of my family history on the back of the vest. So that's a long story for your question, but I hope I answered it.
And you know what? I'm so glad that you showed us the back of that and told us the history of it. That's absolutely stunning.
Well, you know, there's another thing about when I met with Manuel. You know, it was kind of funny because I was doing I always had my TV cameras with me, you know, and I was out on the road. And so when I went there and I was talking to his daughter, who was running the shop, she asked me what I was doing. And I said, I was, you know, a musician. And, you know, and I said, I have a TV show. And she said immediately, oh, so you're here to interview my father. And of course, being a TV show host, I said, of course. And I said, well, when can we do it? She said, well, let's do it tomorrow. So the next day I found myself sitting there with Manuel himself. And you know what? He taught me a lot of really important lessons. You know, up until that point, like many, you know, many kind of folk singers like I am, go out on stage and you wear a festival T-shirt of the place that you played or something like that. You didn't really think that much about what you were wearing. And Manuel, when I sat with him, he said, you can tell the clown by the nose. Whatever you present to the people is what they're going to remember. And he reminded me back in the early days of country music, you know, with the, you know, Rose Maddox and the Maddox Brothers Band and Hank Snow and even like Hank Williams, you know, the clothes that they wore were done to show respect to the hardworking people who came to see them. So, you know, you had a lot of farmers, you had a lot of, you know, industrial workers, and they lived a hard life, and they wanted to see a fantasy. They wanted to see that life could be something brighter, something better. And so when you put on those clothes, you are giving the people the best that you have. And that's what I do when I put these on.
Well, you wear it well, and I'm so glad that you're wearing it here today. Thank you.
Yeah, so you know, I think that one of the things that we can talk about is my book, because we're, you know, and I'm going to hold it up so the viewers can see it, and it's called Banjo Man: Adventures of an American Folk Singer, and it is really about my personal journey as a young boy from New Jersey, and how I chased that dream of becoming a professional musician that played all around the world. And it has a lot of stories about my mentor, the person that I worked with since I was a young boy, folk singer Pete Seeger. And I learned a lot of things from Pete. And Pete is all throughout this book. And as we were talking about earlier today, this day is a very symbolic day because this is the day that Pete passed away. And life has been challenging ever since, because, you know, you feel the responsibility when you are with someone who is so filled with wisdom that now you're one of those people that needs to pass on the lessons that they learned. And that's what I tried to do in this book, is I tried to write down all these different things that I learned from not just Pete, but the other people that I was fortunate to work with, like Jimmie Driftwood, who wrote The Battle of New Orleans, and Utah Phillips, and Sis Cunningham, and all of these wonderful people that helped to open doors for me and show me this path of this traveling musician. And so that's what's in here. And you can see that, it helps me. I play a few different instruments. I brought some here on the table. Oops, I'm trying to get it right. So this is a Native American love flute or accordion flute. And I learned how to play it out on the reservation when I was doing all these school shows out all across the United States. I did shows in all of the lower 48, and many times I'd stay on Native reservations. And so when I was out on the Standing Rock Reservation, and I met up with Kevin Locke, one of the great flute players, traditional flute players from the Sioux tradition. And in order to learn how to play this flute, I had to sit through a traditional sweat lodge purification ceremony. And that was an eye-opening kind of thing. And I found that, not only in the Native American tradition, but whenever you learn something from people who are from a different culture than you are, they're trusting you. They're trusting you with the idea that you're going to take care of what they present to you. And I think that there's also this feeling that you want to make sure, they want to make sure that your intentions are pure. And so by going through something like a purification ceremony in a sweat lodge, you're sitting in there. And I don't know if you've ever been in a sweat lodge, have you?
I have not, but for our audience, why don't you expand upon that? What is that? What do you actually do? You take your clothes off and you sit in mud and sweat, or no?
Well, sort of. You don't take all your clothes off, but you take off your shirt and stuff, and sometimes you're in a bathing suit or whatever, and you're inside usually it's a tiny little kind of a dome made out of twisted branches, and they have a little bit of a fire in the center, and it usually happens at night, and it's dark, and the only thing that you can see is the fire that's glowing, and then someone is pouring on the water, and then
how hot does it get?
Oh, it gets hot because you're in a tiny little area, and sometimes you have to lay down. You have to lay down so that you can continue to breathe if it gets too hot. And so you're doing a bit of you're investing into that situation. You're giving something of yourself. And usually when you do something like this, you're doing it in honor of someone who's not well. Mm-hmm. If you're doing that I was involved in, there was a kind of a thing where people were in there because there were a few of us were basically praying for someone who was not well. And so you're sacrificing a little bit of yourself in order to do that, and it was an eye-opening experience for me, and helped me to learn how to play the instrument. Now, the instrument, they call it the love flute because there's an old story about a young boy who was in love with a girl, and she wasn't paying attention to him. And all of a sudden, a big bull elk came walking by, and he was feeling bad. So he just kind of followed the bull elk, went into the forest, saw an old tree, and the tree was so old that its branches were hollow. And a big red-headed woodpecker perched on one of the limbs, started drilling some holes into the wood. Boy looked up, bird flew away, stick broke off, started sailing down through the sky. And as it did, a gust of wind came by, and it made a sound, went. And the boy picked up the magic stick and he brought it back to the tribe, back to the old medicine man. The old man said that it was a gift from the Great Spirit and should be used in their love or courting rituals. Handed the boy the stick, told him to blow into it. He blew into it. Well, everybody stopped working. They all gathered round. And that young girl that he was so in love with, she noticed him. And she was smiling. But all the other boys, they weren't smiling at all. They said, "Where'd you get that magic love flute from?" So he told them about the old tree in the forest, the big bull elk and the woodpecker. All the boys went over and they broke off a branch and they started making love flutes of their own. And from that time on, especially in the olden days, the Sioux tradition, whenever a young boy fell in love, he had to compose a song for the woman that he loved. And so that's why these songs are sacred. And I don't play any of the traditional songs because it belongs to different families, you see. And you have to have respect. So what Kevin taught me was the technique of how to play the instrument so that you can compose your own songs. And as you can see, when you blow into the flute, you could just blow into it like that, but it doesn't really sound quite like it should. So you have to vibrate. You have to vibrate your Adam's apple there. It's all about the breath.
I was going to ask you about your breathing. Do you do breathing exercises?
Not necessarily, but you when you learn how to play these different instruments, I have another instrument I wanted to show you. It's from where my mom's from. This is a Pushelka. This is from Poland. Okay, and as I said, I lived in Poland back in 1984 to learn how to play some of these old Polish instruments. And so the Pushelka is similar in a way like the Native American flute, because in this case, what you do is you walk out into the woods and you pick up a stick and you measure it from about the size to your outstretched finger over here to your nose. And then you have to hollow it out. Like you see, it's all hollow there. And once you get it hollowed out, you put a little cap and a mouthpiece in it like this. And once again, you use your breath. So there's no, even though there's little dots on here, there's no finger holes at all. It's just a finger. So you blow into it. Depends how hard you blow. Blow. So you get different sounds. And when you move your finger,
We are certainly being entertained today. I absolutely love it. So, and Rik, I can so tell that you have your own TV show. It's so nice to work with a professional. You're very comfortable in front of the screen.
Well, like I said, you get used to being able to communicate with different things, in the media, and having, I didn't want to do a television show. It was not a thing that I didn't want to be a writer either. I think we got to raise my hand because I want to inspire all of you folks out there. I didn't want to be a writer. I didn't want to write a book. I had to write the book. I had to tell the story. When I lived in Poland, I had this fellowship from the Polish government in 1984 to learn how to play the bagpipes, the Polish bagpipes, which I have here, but I'm not going to play it because it's just a little bit too cumbersome to try to do this in front of a computer. But I went and lived in this traditional village in 1984 through 85 and met with some of the last of these old Polish pipers. And while I was there learning, my mentor that we talked about earlier, Pete Seeger, wrote me a letter. He said, Rick, I hope you're writing everything down. You do keep a journal, don't you? It's important to do that. You got to remember everything. Someday it'll be important. That's the way Pete would talk, you know. And I realized he was right. And I started writing everything down. And because of that, I was able to write the book. You know, it has all of this information that I would have remembered. Now, I was not one of those kids, you know, at school that, you know, I didn't even like to go to school, to tell you the truth. You know, when I was a young kid, I found that I hated the school so much. I used to walk backwards because of the idea of looking at the building would drive me crazy. And then when I was older, I used to hop the train. The train would roll by, and I used to hop the train and hobo my way over to grammar school. So I was a little bit unusual as far as a student goes. But I was creative. I had a lot of ideas and stories that were in my head. And when I used to walk up and down the railroad tracks, I used to dream about all these different places that I would, you know, want to see in my life. And so that was sort of the beginning of the journey, was thinking about, you know, wanting to do this and wanting to do that. And then the banjo came into my life when I was only 15 years old. And I started, before I got the banjo, I wanted a banjo, but my mom didn't want to buy me a banjo because I had tried to play this and that, and it didn't work out, and she just didn't think it was worthwhile. And so she she said, no banjo. And, you know, here I was 15 years old. I bought Pete Seeger's How to Play the 5-String Banjo book. And I started reading it every night. I used to play the hand positions on my pillow, used to pretend that I had a banjo. And I used to go into a music store, pull a banjo off the wall, and then the shopkeeper would say, are you going to buy that? You better put it back on the wall. So I devised a plan. Here I was 15 years old. What kind of money could I get? You know, well, I had lunch money. So I went on a hunger strike. I didn't eat. I saved my birthday money, and all. My mom didn't know anything about this, but I was saving all the chore money, anything I could get. My lunch money every day was going into my banjo account. And then one day I saw an ad in the newspaper, and I was $50 short. And I told my mom that you know, I needed $50 to get my banjo, and I showed her the money, and this is my lunch money banjo that I still play today. And it changed my life. It changed my life in so many ways. And I was trying to learn how to play the banjo. I was trying to learn. And back then, there weren't a lot of places that you could learn from. This is early 1970s. You know, banjo kind of goes along with, like, you know, you had the Deliverance movie for, you know, that was early on. Before that, you had Beverly Hillbillies and Foggy Mountain Breakdown, and all of those things. But I was at a sort of a low point of the banjo world where wasn't much going on. I think it was before Deliverance. And so I had to find people who could play the banjo. So I'd be hitchhiking. Down. I lived in New Jersey. I went down to the Pine Barrens. Anybody who's been to the Pine Barrens in New Jersey knows that it's a pretty desolate place, really kind of a unusual place. And it's not like what you think of New Jersey. It's filled with all these forests and pine trees. And I had heard about this place called Albert's Cabin out in the Pine Barrens. And I convinced a friend of mine, a young friend, that he could play the mandolin. And we hitchhiked together, and we went down to where we were going to Waretown, but we didn't know where Waretown really was. And we ended up over in Mount Holly in a music store. And I was talking about, well, I wanted to go down and to the Pine Barrens, to Albert's Cabin. Had you ever heard of it? He said, well, boys, I'll tell you, I'm going there tonight. Why don't you come with me? So we had struck gold. So, you know, we just met this guy, you know. So he waited till the shop closed, went into his car. We're driving down the New Jersey roads, and then we get to the part where, you know, we're going on the parkway, And all of a sudden, we noticed that he makes a turn, and now we're on the opposite side of the highway, going in the wrong direction. And then we go into the woods. At this point, I'm saying to my friend, I'm going, what's going on? This is crazy. And then we look in the woods. We're driving into the, down this dirt path, and there's these abandoned washing machines and all kinds of junk. And there's and I'm saying, oh no, we don't know who this guy is. He could be an axe murderer. We don't know. We've just met him. And our little minds was racing around. And there was a part where there was a mirror that was stuck outside, and our headlights went into the mirror, and it shined back at me, and we kind of like freaked out. And we're like, oh, he's going to kill us. I know he's going to kill us. And just at that moment, we heard the sound of music. And he says, well, boys, we're here. We walked out, and there it was, Hunter's cabin, Albert's cabin. All these people sitting on the front porch with their instruments, fiddles and banjos. And there was an old man there. And he had a young boy with him, and they were playing the banjo together. And I took out my banjo, and I was playing along. And we're having a good time. And then, the old guy, he says, well, you want to play the old Joe Clark? Well, I didn't know it. I saw it in the book, but I never played it. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know it. He goes, well, my name is Sam Hunt. I'm one of the old banjo players around here. I've been playing banjo all my life. I live out here in the Pine Barrens. I make my own banjos. I keep the wood underneath my bathtub. This guy talked fast and furious. I never heard anybody talk so fast as Sam Hunt. And then he said, well, I think it's time that you learn how to play old Joe Clark. And he showed me, he said, you take your finger, you put your finger over here and you slide down like that. So I did that. He said, put one finger behind the other and pluck it like that. So I did that. He said, now hit it open. First fret on the second string, hit the second string open. Try that. Said, now do it again. This time, hit it open. Once more, slide, pull off, open. Now you go open third, second fret of the third, and the third fret of the fourth, and then open. Said, try it. So I started going. Clark.
That was fabulous. I'm just overwhelmed by the music. You're such a great entertainer. I would love to turn to your book and have you read for us, but we're going to take a quick break and we're going to hear from some of our sponsors. Then we'll be back on the corner bookstore. And then Rik, you'll be ready to go, right?
I will.
I know that and I love it. All right. We'll be back, friends. Stay with us here on USA Global TV.
what you're giving me is just not enough. I need a love to take me higher and higher and higher. Every step I take, I feel more awake. Getting closer now, I feel so alive. Stopping me, this is how I live. Ever closer now. Just follow love, and love will take you there. Just follow love, follow me. Just follow love, and love will take you there. Just follow love, follow me. Follow love.
Welcome back to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show is The Corner Bookstore. And Rik Palieri has been here entertaining us for the whole show, which I absolutely love. Rik, you're going to read for us from one of your books, correct?
Yes,
All right.
I am.
Tell us what you're going to read to us.
Well, this particular story is, one of those stories that has been used over and over again. I guess it's the first story that I wrote that people started, printing, and it has a journey all of its own. The first time that it was printed was Pete Seeger, my mentor, surprised me, and he put it in Sing Out magazine. And he wrote me a little note. He says, "Well, Rik, better pick up a copy." So here we go. I was getting back from touring Alaska and was ready to fly home out of Bellingham, Washington, but noticed there was some kind of problem. The counterperson was throwing up her hands in frustration, telling everyone that all the planes were having problems and they would not be able to fly today. You can just imagine the stress that was in that room. They told us that a bus would be provided that would take us to Seattle. There was just a slight chance that some of us might be able to make our connections. Everyone was worried, as we only had an hour and a half to make the connecting flights, and the bus was not even at the airport yet. When the bus finally did pull up, the driver said in a nasty tone, "They just pulled me out of bed after an all-night shift, and they expect me to perform a miracle and get you to Seattle in time to catch your flight. Good luck." Needless to say, everyone was in a real bad mood. I was loading my stuff into the bus, and I had slung my banjo over my back when the bus driver said, "What? Are you going to play that in my bus?" "Well, I really did not plan on it," I replied. "I was only kidding," said the driver. But I started thinking about it, and I reached inside my case and pulled out my banjo. "Well, what if I don't like it?" said an angry, worried woman. "Then tell me and I'll stop," I replied. The bus drove off, and the tension was horrendous. Then I started plucking away at a neat version of an old standard, Blue Skies, that I learned from Pete Seeger. You know that one, "Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see." In a few minutes, I noticed that everyone was humming along. A few minutes went by, and I heard a few more voices joining in. I started singing, and before long, the whole bus burst out into song, and even the bus driver sang along in his big bass baritone. One song led to another, and everyone seemed to have a request. Do you know, You Are My Sunshine? Soon, photographs appeared as passengers made friends and shared pictures of vacations, family members, newborn babies, and old friends. Everyone laughed and sang, and food was being passed around the bus. Before we knew it, we were pulling into the Seattle airport. We made it with time to spare. The bus driver called out, everyone clapped their hands. Then he said, we would have never done it without the help of our banjo player. Shouts of approval rang through the bus. As we all got out, people exchanged addresses and invitations. A few exchanged hugs, and then we all went our separate ways. This was the best ride I ever had, said the driver. And as I was leaving the bus, he said, thanks for the music. A few weeks later, back in the hills of old Vermont, my mailbox was filled with letters and reminiscences of that magical musical bus ride.
Woo! I can see it. I'm there with you.
Yeah. So that and that's the way that I kind of write. I kind of I'm more of like an organic writer. I never took any lessons, writing lessons or anything like that, or musical. I took some musical lessons, but from Eric Darling, one of the members of the Weavers, who taught me a little bit of banjo. But most of the stuff I'm self-taught. And, I think that it's important to people to know that. You got to know who you are. I'm not trying to pretend to be anything that I'm not. I'm just a folk singer. I have a story to tell, and I tell it in a very plain and simple way that other people can understand it. And hopefully that inspires them to say, hey, man, if that guy can write a story, I can write a story too. And that's what I'm saying to all you folks out there who are listening, is that we all have a story inside of us. And, a lot of people don't understand that stories, they are the most precious possessions that we own. You may think that your money and all your objects in your house and all those things are important, but unfortunately, when we pass on, sometimes all those things go into the dumpster. The money gets all spent. And the only thing that's left is a story. And that's how you're remembered. You're remembered by the story. So you know that your ancestor, you know that there's a story about them. And even though you never met them, that story brings them back to life. And you think about that, your grandfather, your grandmother, and those stories live on. And as long, and they say there's a lot of cultures that say, as long as people remember your name, then you never die. So that's why stories are so important.
Rik, I really appreciate the fact that you just shared that authentically. And obviously, we're on the corner bookstore. We want to inspire other people to write. And as you mentioned, we all have a story inside of us. What are some of the things that people can do if they're just, they have the story, but they just can't take the first step, pen to paper or fingers to keyboard?
I think, the first thing is, go back through your life and think about something that meant something to you, that affected you, something emotional. I mean, usually it's either a funny story, right? Or an emotional story, a learning story. Those are the things that I look for when I'm writing, when my friend Tim Brooks, wonderful writer, and a great friend, we kind of base the idea on let's keep this book real. And also it has to have a purpose. So the stories have to have a teaching part in there, or a learning about the human condition, or some sort of kind of a funny moment in your life, or it's something that really, maybe you just it stuck out there. I'll show you just a little thing. Here I was out on the road. I was living in my Volkswagen bus with my dog. I have these Polish sheepdogs. I still have one now. This one's called Dolina. But back then, the first one was Koza. And we were doing all of these programs teaching young people about Poland. So every day I'd be dressed in the traditional outfit of Poland, and I would go into the schools and I'd play for 4 schools a day. So there would be maybe 300-400 in each school. So you're reaching a lot of people. Not that they would know who I was, but they would remember there was this kind of kooky guy who came in here playing these Polish bagpipes and singing and stuff. And I was teaching them a little bit about those old traditions. But soon as I would leave the school, I'd have to go on, maybe drive another 100 miles in that night to get to the next town to do it all over again. And it was every day, at least 4 schools a day. And then on the weekends, you would sometimes be down in Alabama, and then you'd have to get, maybe in the Midwest, or sometimes you're in California and you have to get to Butte, Montana. And so you're constantly just driving, and late night drives trying to get there. And no matter what the weather, it didn't matter. You had to be there. Even if the school was closed, I would have snow out, and I'd be parked there. Like, what are you doing here? The school's closed. Well, I have to be here. That's what my contract says. So I am here. And that life, because you are there totally for the music, you're totally there for that moment. You are alone in a very sad way, and sometimes, because one moment you're in front of 400, 500 people. The next moment, nothing, no one. And you're places where you don't know anyone. And that's what this little kind of thing that was in my notebook, in my little journal that I was writing in. It's tough being out here on the road, living in 100 towns every week, not knowing a friendly soul to laugh with or cry with. Nighttime is the worst of all, as you really feel truly alone. Passing through the small towns, you see that some houses have their living room or bedroom drapes pulled wide open. Riding by, you can get a peek to the lives of the people who live inside. Lit by a naked light bulb or the television, you can see furniture and sometimes a few pictures on the wall. You hardly ever see the people, for they're hidden behind glass and wood, and their bodies are just mere shadows dancing on the wall. It's long after midnight. All the lights are out, and you, the voyeur, are bathed in the blackness and loneliness of a dark highway. In the towns, everyone has gone to bed. Children sleep restfully after that last loving goodnight kiss on their forehead, while their parents rock in each other's arms till they too fall gently asleep. For you, the traveler, there is no kiss. There is no fond embrace, only the humming of the vibrating engine and the sound of the wind whipping across your windshield as you travel down an endless road.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah, so
Rik,
that's
I would just like to have you share with our audience, as we come to the last segment of our show, tell us about your work that's archived at the American Folklife Center in Washington.
Well, back in 2000, back in around 1999, I started a television show called The Songwriters Notebook. And it was not something I wanted to do. It was something that somebody had to do it. somebody had to interview all of these musicians. So I started doing the program and learning about TV production as I went along. Luckily, the community, it was called VCAM at the time. It's now called the Media Factory. They train you. They show you everything you need to know. First of all, they do a lot of the work, and then you learn how to do it. So I started doing more and more interviews with local musicians, and then people like Pete Seeger and my mentor, Utah Phillips, and Tom Paxton. And before you know it, all of these different people started wanting to be on the show. So I started traveling around and interviewing all the people. In 2009, I was at a convention, this big folk convention called the Folk Alliance, the International Folk Alliance. And it was that year, it was over in Memphis, Tennessee. And as I was there, I met someone from the Library of Congress, from the American Folklife Center. That's the old collection where Woody Guthrie and Leadbelly and Pete Seeger's work were all collected and stored. And I used to listen to albums from, the Library of Congress collection. So I was very, interested in talking with this woman, Jennifer Cutting. And Jennifer said, we hear that you're doing some good work, and we'd like to get a sample of what you're doing. So I went and I kind of cherry picked. I pulled out all of these different things that I thought would be of interest, and I sent them in. And then it took a little while, but they said, we want it all. Want it all? Yes, we want everything. And so then I had to go into the TV studio, and luckily I had owned the masters. Usually at a community TV, you borrow the masters and they get recycled. But my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, he was in videos, he gave me all of these, big 3/4-inch tapes. So I had my name written on it and saved. So I had my whole collection. And so I was able, the first time, we drove down to Washington, D.C., and there's a whole process in order to get, it's not that easy to do this. They have to really want you. And so I was able to bring my masters in because they had to have the masters, because for the next, as technology changes, because those are the 3/4-inch tapes, of course, now it's streaming. But they wanted the original masters, so I had to give away all my masters. And on the contract, it said, for the future people of the United States of America, that I am donating this work so that people can learn about our times. And I tell you, it is the proudest thing that I've been able to accomplish, because anyone who was on my show is now part of that collection. They are all in the Library of Congress at the American Folklife Center, and they will have their work available for generations to come. Because the Library of Congress thinks of things in 100 years from now, when we're all gone. People can go over and they can listen to, like Utah Phillips tell some stories and sing a song, or somebody like Rachel Bissix, a local folk singer who passed away here in Vermont, and those lives are remembered. So I guess it kind of is a continuation of everything that I believe in about keeping the stories alive. And I'm really, really honored. Now I think there's about 648 of my interviews are all in the Rik Palieri Songwriters Notebook collection at the American Folklife Center. So if you're in Washington, D.C., you can go there and you can watch them and learn all about all that work.
Congratulations, Rik. You created this legacy, and that is just fantastic. I'm so proud of you and happy for you.
Well, I think it's one of those things that sometimes you work on projects that are bigger than you are, right? Like what you're doing, you're giving people a voice. That's what we try to do in this world. If we're in the media, it's not really about us. It's about we feel compelled that people need a chance to have their voices heard. And by doing a program like this, of opening up an opportunity for authors to talk about their work, is a wonderful thing, because it's not that easy for authors to have a chance to be heard.
And my understanding is that the author community, I'm actually an author as well, that it's not competitive. It's really supportive. Everyone's encouraging each other to get that content out there and share. And here on this platform, USA Global TV, we're very heart-centric. And I can tell you're a heart-centric person as well. So can you share with us, how do you take all of those experiences and those memories and the feelings that you have and put them into art, whether it's through music or through writing?
Well, I think it's the passion. We have to feel the passion. I mean, some people, I mean, they don't understand it. I mean, sometimes we don't even understand it. I mean, sometimes, sometimes the muse, which is the magical part of this creativity, will visit you. And it was not too long ago, that I was sleeping, and the muse came to me, and this time she came in the shape of a bubble, and she's kind of talking to me, and she's giving me lines to a song, right? And I'm like waking me up, and I'm going, man, I'm tired. And I said, and then I realized, I said, wait a minute, this is creativity that's happening. Don't go away. And I ran down and I wrote down as much as I could remember, because it was funny, because when I said, I'm tired, she goes, well, I'll go away. I said, don't go away, just hold right there. And I think that's the whole thing about being an artistic kind of person, that our brains are wired in a different way, that it's all about the art. It's all about the creativity. And so, and all of us have those stories and things, if we're only able to open up our minds and listen to what is inside us, that we can, I think that we put ourselves in little boxes that, oh, you're this or you're that. And the chance to dream sometimes gets taken away from us. But the thing is that we have to believe in ourselves, that, give ourselves permissions to fail too. That not everything that you're going to do is going to be perfect. I love this thing about wabi-sabi. You know about that? Did you ever hear about wabi-sabi? Wabi-sabi is the being perfectly imperfect. Back in Japan, that they have this whole idea that nothing is perfect, or the great creator, God, that's the only thing that's perfect. But we're just humans, and we all make mistakes. And sometimes if a pot breaks and you're a potter, what you do is you take it and you put gold into the cracks. And guess what? The cracks in the pottery show the true beauty. So our faults also show who we are. And the thing is that instead of running away from your faults, to embrace your faults and say, well, I'm not perfect, but I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best. That's the thing. We'll do our best for now. And okay, maybe we'll have to try again next time, and then we'll do our best again. Hey, there's no end to this game of life until we're gone. So yeah, lots of time, if it doesn't work this time, we can go ahead and we can try again. So I think that's one of the things for anyone who's aspiring to write something is, don't worry, write it. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. Pick up another piece of paper, write it again and write it again. And as you know, as a writer yourself, that it takes many, many, many drafts before you might get to the gold that you really want to put down in print.
Yes, that is so well said. And I'll just share, when I was writing my doctoral dissertation, I had to rewrite it 118 times because my mentor said it has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. And it was a really good learning experience, because we sometimes don't want to put that much effort into something. You get to the point where just put it out there, just get rid of it because I want to move on to the next thing. But no, we can't do that.
Yeah, I think and then we're also talking about this idea. I want to make sure that we get this in. My wife is a hand bookbinder, so that's why that when you see this, it kind of looks kind of fancy. This is it says Rik's Book of Dreams. This is volume number 4. I'm up to volume number 7. So this is not a book of what I dream at night. This is a book of projections about what I want to do in life, who I want to be in life. And so it's filled with all the things that I'm hoping to achieve. And I do a lot of things in here. Let me see if I can find something that has I do these dream circles in here. Oh, I put pictures of friends in here, that people that are important to me. And I'll make a big pie chart kind of thing of when I'm trying to achieve a certain goal. I won't find one in this one, but what I usually do is I put the goal. Let's say that you wanted to write a book, okay? So you put in there that you're going to write a book, and you give yourself a year or whatever. Put that in the circle, and then you make like a big sunburst with all of these lines coming out, and then everything that you do, you might make a phone call and talk to a friend about you're thinking about writing a book. Write that down, that you talk to somebody. Then the next thing, maybe you went out and you looked at a new computer. Then you write that down. Keep writing down all the things that you keep doing that are going to help you write that book. And soon you're going to see this kind of a power grid that's building up. It's showing you, like, look, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and this happened. And then let's say, you wrote something and it got published. Whoa, that's kind of cool. So you write that down and put a star over there. Oh, that happened. And you keep watching that whole circle fill up with power of saying that I am going to complete this goal. And usually that intention of that you're going to do something, that you are committed to doing that. And, the energy finds its way. It might be something like, you'd be thinking about, writing this book, and somebody hands you a book about, writing. That's part of it. That's part of the journey. Everything that you do contributes to that end result of you writing the book. So on the back of my book, my wife put in gold, it says, trust, dream, imagine. Your dreams will spring to life. And then I quoted something that was here from the Bible, I think. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall open. Ask and it shall be given. There's another important part about this is that if you don't ask, if you don't try to do things, you don't ask that question, you might not get the answer. So the important thing is to be able to take risks. If you're going to be an artist, if you're going to be a musician, you can't, there are a lot of great musicians out there sitting around, and they can play everything perfectly, but they didn't try, so they never got a chance to share it. So the thing is not to let that opportunity go by. Is when you're working at something, do everything that you can do to try and make things happen. And if you do that, other people see that, and they will come and help you. But always remember that it has to go the other way. If you see somebody who's struggling, you make sure that you help them too.
What a great way to end the show, Rik. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure having you here, and all your experience, especially from one TV show host to another, and just all the wonderful experience you have. We do have a new music show coming out, and I'd love to have you on that as well.
Great. Well, I'm just going to do a little bit of a song here for all our listeners.
Okay, take it away.
This is a Friends for Life. That's what will always be. Friends for life. Just you and me. Through all of life's journeys. Through all of our lives, we both realize we're friends for life. Friends for life.
Friends for life. Thank you so much, Rik. What is the best way for people to reach out to you, and who would you like to contact you?
Well, I think anybody who wants to communicate with me, you can find me over at Rik, R-I-K. I have no C. I lost the C in a bad printing accident years ago. First time in printing, when I was a teenager and I had my first business card, they misspelled my name. They were R-I-K, and I was like devastated. And all my friends said, "Rik, that's kind of cool." So I kept it. Everybody thinks it's something that I conjured up. Nope, it was a bad printing accident. So that's what I'm saying. That sometimes the typos and the faults that you have show you who you really are. So you can say Rik, R-I-K, at, and then Banjo, BANJO.net. That's my email. So if you have a question, you can write me there. You can also go to my website, and you can find out information about my book. There's all kinds of pictures in there. There's a big long bio that shows you more things than you need to know. And that's at Rik Palieri. It's RikPalieri.com. And you can find it, how to get the book. And if you buy my book, I will sign it for you. I do a special kind of a sign signature there from all the years of working at schools. And and Mariana makes a special bookmark from our book bindery that we put in there, and I have a card that I add. And this is not Amazon, folks. This is getting it right from the artist. This is the real deal. And I try to make sure that when we connect, that it's a personal connection that is meaningful.
That is beautiful. I love the way that you and your wife do this together as a team.
Yeah. And it's been really great, because having a bookbinder, it really enables you to have, like, one of my earlier books. Here's my presentation copy that she made me. There's something really special about having a journal or something like that that's handmade.
Definitely.
And I really like things that are handmade and one of a kind.
I do too. Well, you're certainly one of a kind. You are a gem, and I appreciate you being here today, and look forward to having you back on this or a music show or any of our other shows.
Sure. Well, keep in touch with me, and like I said, I hope that I wanted to do something today in memory of Pete Seeger. And I said to everyone who knew him, all my friends, and I said, let's try to do something to remember him, do something that he would have liked, like talking about, write a letter to your congressman, go pick up a piece of trash, sing a song, but do something and think of Pete Seeger today on the day that he passed away.
In honor of Pete Seeger. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rik. We'll see you again.
Okay. Be well now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
What a great show. Not only did we get serenaded, but we got to hear from Rik about his journey, his experiences, and that's what this platform is all about. So I'm so glad that he was here today. And whether you're watching us live or you're watching us on the replay, we certainly appreciate your loyalty. How can you watch our shows, you might be asking? We're actually going to be migrating from our 17 platforms. I'm going to try to take everything down to 3 platforms. So would love if you would go over to our YouTube channel. We started it not that long ago. It's USA Global TV. And while you're there, if you just click subscribe, and then we have all of our playlists. So this show will be under the playlist, The Corner Bookstore. You can also go to our website, USA Global TV, and you can watch our shows there. All right, folks, we are going to be off the air for about 45 minutes. Then we will be back with the Wise Ones and my co-host, Red O'Loughlin. So do stay around for that. We appreciate it. And please do reach out to Rik. Reach out. He's such a wonderful person. Think about Pete Seeger and maybe sing a song in his honor. Maybe open a door for someone. Just say some kind words. Lift everybody up as much as you can. That's what we really need in this world. All right. Thanks so much. See you again later. Bye.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
when I'm struggling with my house, I think, you know, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.